I appreciate that. Thanks, Shane.
Do you want to jump into that other question in the chat on the Q&A, Dr. Allenson, from Stephen Levin?
Yes, I was just about to. Thanks for that.
Perfect, thank you.
This was directed at Shane, but obviously to get more individuals involved in this process, I guess it can be opened up and just jump in. So would you advise kind of learning outcomes or core messages to be communicated to players before the session? And I guess this can go to kind of everybody. Shane, you might want to kick us off, especially from a positive pedagogy perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. The players need to know why we're doing what we're doing so that the how and the why are linked together. That's both from a motivational perspective, so understanding why we're doing what we're doing will lead to the motivation to actually invest in it, but also so that the learning is explicit and visible. The expectations of the coach are not a secret, they're explicit, they're visible. We can get everybody focused on what's important. If we don't share those things at the start, then the players are guessing as to what the coach is thinking is important, what the success criteria for the training session is, and therefore if there is some confusion during training, we've contributed to it because we've not been explicit at the start, not only about why we're doing what we're doing and how we're doing it, but by actually walking the players through the practice session before we start, so that there is familiarity with it before we get onto the court, the field, whatever environment that we're using. From an educational perspective, that is one of the most powerful instructional strategies that we can use to power up learning. There will be a number of players who are independent and self-regulated, and they want to fly ahead, they want to be organised, they want to know what's happening, and if we hide that from them, we provide a level of frustration for them too. But from Hattie's work in education circles, we know that this has one of the most high impact effects on coaching and should happen in any educational situation. So if we see the sports coach as a pedagogue, then we should be doing all aspects of powerful pedagogy.
Anybody else from the panel want to now chip in to echo Shane or talk about that?
Yes, can I just speak in regards to gymnastics, because it is an individual sport, and sometimes because they have different plans to follow, it is a little bit hard in the beginning of the session to go over what we are doing, because each athlete has their own plan. So I believe that it is important, also challenging, but it is important to go, especially after warm-up, because the girls have a set warm-up that they usually do. It is important to go over to each one of them and actually go through and know where they're at, what it needs to be improved or worked on, and then at the end of the session do a little bit of the same. It is challenging because of the time, but if it is a routine, it gets easier doing that, and especially with the parents, with that issue with the parents can also have a plan or what we set as a goal for each gymnast in the beginning of, for example, we usually have competitions throughout the year, but in the beginning of the competition season, it is good to give the parents as well a goal of what we want for their child to achieve. So
thank you for that, Bianca.
You're welcome.
So we'll move on to the next question that Kyle posted, and I guess I'll kick this off with Laura. So what has been the most impactful learning you've had, and how would you introduce these ideas to coaches, teachers who haven't come across this pedagogy before?
I would say, for me, in looking at all the different people who are talking on this, I come from America, and I had been coaching for a long time, and I hadn't heard about positive pedagogy until I got into my master's. And so I would say for me, the most impactful thing was just making sure that you're consistent with it, and then really trying to make sure that you stick with it over the long run. So I got to really kind of have almost like a test in terms of using it with my little youth volleyball team. But when I tested it out, I really got to see the advantages through the course of the season. So I would say for that, just make sure that you're consistent with, okay, here's what I want to try to do. Don't give up after your first, second, third time trying it, because it is a process. It does take a long time to get comfortable, for the players to get comfortable. And then I would say for the introducing the ideas, it could be really small in terms of the questioning. It can be, the think, pair, share. So I would say just having that, of maybe if you're a club director or in charge of coaches, finding information, doing more research on positive pedagogy, and then instead of, okay, we're going to completely switch and change, let's implement one thing and see how it goes. Then let's do another thing. And over time, I think you can just be more comfortable with using positive pedagogy overall.
Thanks for that, Laura. Nick, do you want to go now? Nick, you might be muted.
The most impactful learning, really, I guess, was reading Richard's books, and then Richard's and Stephen's books. And then you're just sitting there thinking, yeah, I do that. I've tried that. I do this. So it was reassuring that you know you're on the right path. And that then just allowed me to keep doing it. And then for me, going into different environments, like going across to Chile, where it's coach-centered, drill-based, and I'm able to apply these principles to these players that have been coached in a completely different way, to see how they responded. Seeing novice people progress and improve, and going back to a question earlier in the evening or the daytime, depending where you are, in terms of the question of to what extent do you find that this approach improves creativity? 100%. This allows players, athletes, whatever the sport, individual or team, to produce things that you never expect them to produce. I had a great moment in Chile where all of a sudden this 8-year-old kid does this type of kick, which, I'd never imagined an 8-year-old to be able to do this type of cross-field kick in rugby union. The pros do it on TV and things, but you just don't know when that moment's going to happen. So I definitely recommend people to read the books that are out there. The individual one, the team-based one, the Game Sense book. Just pick whichever one suits you, and then just think then what applies to your own setting. I think that's the key challenge here, is applying these principles to your own coaching. But start small and focus on one feature at a time, and then just go through the plan, do review process. Just little chunks, and then just drip feed them into different sessions. So say this season, I'm going to focus on my creating the environment, and just go from there. Then you'll gain confidence. The feedback you'll get from the players, they'll be more engaged, more active, doing some really cool things. And just stick your head in the deep end, and you're definitely going to swim. You won't drown.
Appreciate that, Nick. Thank you. Ricardo, same question.
Cool. So to me, as I said in my presentation, was probably using the player's experience, because I was Richard Light's PhD student, so I had that direct contact with him and applying that pedagogy. Every session, every PhD meeting we had, we would always talk about it, and we would always turn into that, to talking about my coaching and what I was doing, what I was feeling. So it was a really good opportunity to learn from it. But it, to me, was understanding that I knew that other skills could be applied to my sport, but I didn't know how to use it. And for me, looking at my players playing netball and then transferring it to basketball was a click that I'm like, okay, so this is how I do it. I have to watch sport. I have to understand other sports and maybe learn some names they use in those sports so I can transfer to mine so they can understand what I mean. And my advice to other coaches or teachers is what Nick said, just do it. And as I said in my presentation, it's time consuming in the beginning. It's hard to do it, hard to see progress in the beginning, but stick with it. It's gonna come. As long as you're reflective and not what Shane said, if you're not critical, if you're not negative about what you're seeing and what you're even about your own reflections, it's a lot easier as you do it because you develop tools. That's why we don't use like any model like, oh, this is how you do it, this is how you follow it, because it's different. It depends on the group, depends on the person, so on the coach as well, on even the institution, whatever you're working with, it depends. So you develop tools as you work with it. So that's how I would say. But for me as well, questioning is the main thing. What are your questions? If it is direct, if you want just a direct yes or no answer, or if you want to develop that, I would start with questioning.
Thanks for that, Ricardo. I know we're pushing for time, so Letitia, quick answer from you, and then we'll finish with Dr. Stephen Harvey to close up.
Most impactful learning to trust your athletes. Definitely. Always trust your athletes. I think Ricardo mentioned it earlier. It's crazy how many great ideas your athletes actually have. And how would I introduce this to coaches or teachers that haven't been used to positive pedagogy? Honestly, this is a big challenge, especially coaches that are in the elite level who are super busy and don't have the time to stop and think necessarily about their coaching. But we've mentioned it consistently. Just keep challenging coaches to critique and reflect on their coaching practice. I'm chipping away at one coach at the moment, and eventually I think she's starting to get it. But like Ricardo said, it takes time, but I think putting in that time eventually will help the coaching community for the better moving forward.
I appreciate that, Letitia. It looks like Steve's just gone, so I guess he's not wrapping it up. So that's an interesting concept, as he's the main guy, so he's just left me high and dry right now. It's a good job I'm a colleague and we're on the same wavelength, I guess. So just to finish, in case he does come back on, I just want to say a huge thank you for everybody that has been an attendee today. I hope that you've taken so much away from these incredible coaches and these incredible professors that have done a life's amount of work on these processes. And also I want to say a huge thank you for the presenters to giving up their Saturdays or Sundays with Shane and Bianca and Ricardo on kind of just coming in and being a part of this Ohio University Symposium, and in the hope that you can move forward and still be very good collaborators with us here at OU. And we are very, very grateful for you giving up your time this morning and this afternoon or tomorrow, depending where you are in the world right now. I'm not sure what's happening right now with Steve. Hopefully I can kind of end this, no problem. I think there's some things in the Q&A chat that Tasha Attaway's put in, who's one of our recruitment and retention specialists, regarding some kind of website. So we've got a lot going on with our own coaching education programs. And we have an online master's in general coaching education. We have a master's in soccer coaching education. So there's some links there. And there's going to be there's another link and a follow-up email with a form in terms of some feedback, and also the link in case you missed anything or you would like to watch this again. But from me and the rest of everybody that's been involved in this, it's been an incredible experience, and I appreciate everybody's time. And I hope that you're all able to implement positive pedagogy in the best ways possible moving forward. Thank you.
Nice to see you all. I think Ash is gone, so that's the end of the host, but lovely to see you all. Nick, your hair's a different colour since I saw you last.